Welcome to the final video for X5 and the final 4 stages of the game. I'd call this a nightmare, but that's really more appropriate for X6. These are still some painful stages though, but first, the cutscene. Of course, the space shuttle plan succeeded in this playthrough, but as I'm sure most of you know, X5's ending is actually entirely luck reliant. No matter how many items you gather or whatever happens throughout the game, it is still possible for the space shuttle plan to fail and cost you 0 for the rest of the game. Which, you know, I've never liked. I mean, I don't think the ending of the game should be entirely based on RNG, even if the chance of failure is relatively small if you've beaten all of the stages. So coming up are the 4 virus levels, as they are mostly known as. Some players call them the Zero Virus stages, the Cyberspace stages, because they technically take place in cyberspace like Cyber Peacock's stage, but, you know, I don't really get that. Cyberspace has always been a weird thing in the X series continuity, especially when it comes to the Zero series and Cyber Elves. But anyways, this is the first virus stage. It is colored very blue. Yeah, the first 3 virus stages, they all have recolored backgrounds, which I guess is less interesting than it could have been. But these virus stages, they actually bring back some stuff from previous X games and previous Mega Man games, such as Quickman lasers. Yes, they thought Quickman lasers were a good idea, so they just had to bring them back. Just like Network Transmission thought it was a really good idea to bring them back. And you can also see that the virus heads have been replaced by Zero viruses. They actually infect you at twice the speed as the regular virus heads do. So naturally, when dealing with quick lasers, it is best to activate something that stops time and stops the lasers completely. I tried to get through this stage without using the Dark Hold because I thought that would have been more interesting to see, but it was just not happening. So I've got the Dark Hold and I've got the part that doubles the amount of weapon energy you get. So this Dark Hold would normally not last the entire trip, but with the weapon energy saver and the Speedster part, I'm going to get through this very quickly. Like, the Speedster is very good here because you don't necessarily want to be dashing all the time, and with the added weapon energy capsules that they drop for free, you can actually just get through all of this and trivialize the entire thing. But still, quick lasers with no other enemies blocking you on your way here, that actually makes the stage rather short, but it has so much trial and error to it that you're actually going to have to make multiple attempts if this is your first time and you're not using the parts that I am. And of course, in addition to the quick lasers, the boss has to be something stupid from a previous Mega Man game that they just can't let go of. So we've got a devil boss, in this case the Shadow Devil as they call it, complete with the boss music from Mega Man 1. Like, it would have been nice to have an old boss come back, as long as you make them better for the gameplay, because, like, yeah, I'm using an exploit here. When the boss is doing his usual pattern, there's actually a blind spot way in the corner there that you can use, but you have to rapidly tap the X button to stay in the exact corner, because if you drop even 1 frame, then the block on the corner is going to hit you. So I've got the Ultimate Buster equipped, and I'm actually using Charge Shots here instead of his weakness, which is the Tri-Thunder. And the reason for that is the Tri-Thunder actually adds a lot of invincibility frames, so I think it's just better to use Ultimate Buster Charge Shots. That always felt like it did more damage, like it piles on more hits, that's what I'm trying to say. So yes, the usual problem with the Devil Bosses applies. It's going to repeat the same pattern over and over again. This boss battle actually takes longer than the stage itself, and that's really annoying. I just think it was a bad idea to bring this boss back and do absolutely nothing to kind of fix the usual problem with this thing's tedium. Past half health, you will actually do something different and allow you to get in a lot more hits. We just have to survive until that point. Also, that green outline that he leaves behind, don't touch that, it does damage. So yeah, you can imagine that my thumb must have been getting really tired mashing the button to stay in the corner there. I mean, if you do it this way, it's not really that difficult. You just have to hope that your thumb doesn't get tired and give in to taking a hit or two. So yes, this is the second phase. He goes into this Wily Tank form, which is another shout out to classic Mega Man. This very much looks like a Wily machine, and emulator was lagging a little bit there, don't worry about it. So, unfortunately, he still goes back to his usual pattern, and if you get really unlucky, then he might just decide to extend the length of the little block dodging phase. The block dodging phase isn't even that difficult in the first place because you only really have to jump over the bottom block when it moves across. Oh, this is something he can do too, by the way. Just make the fight take even longer. Sure, anything you say, Capcom. I'm lucky I had the shock buffer equipped because, you know, doing this with Unarmored X and no defensive buffs, that would have made it even more difficult. If I wanted to do it that way, I'm more than certain I would have gotten hit by a block during the block dodging phase. Like, if I tried to do it the normal way. But anyways, this should be the end. Yeah, there we go, finally. It took, like, 5 whole minutes to do that. Let's see, I was equipping parts for the first minute of this video, and then I think I, like, spent another minute dodging the Quickman lasers, so that boss took, like, 4 minutes of real time. And that's... You know, let me make one other thing clear. I only showed you the successful fight against the Shadow Devil. I died many, many times trying to relearn the fight because I haven't done this in a long, long time. Alright, so I'm changing my parts now. I think I switched to Hyper Dash and Jumper because I don't really need Weapon Energy Saver anymore, and I don't really need Speedster when I have Hyper Dash. So the purple virus stage is up next, and the shape of this stage... Like, there's one part of the stage where it definitely reminds you of that initial climb into Sigma's Fortress in X1. I'll point that out when we get to it. But now that there are actual enemies in this stage, I can actually talk about them. Those giant Sigma-esque soldiers, they're really difficult to get past. They've got a lot of health, so damage boosting past them is just way faster. And again, we have more Zero viruses. Again, they infect you at twice the speed of a regular Sigma virus head. Like, I think the plot of this is the entire reason Sigma wanted to crash that colony into Earth was because the colony had a virus in it, and he wanted to combine it with a Sigma virus to make the Zero virus and awaken Zero, essentially. Because if you lose Zero, then he gets infected with a virus, and let's just say he goes back to what his original creator wanted him to be in the first place. So anyways, I'm actually using Dark Hold here. Like, I normally never use it outside of that one stage that I just used it in. The blue virus stage. But it didn't really last that long because I didn't have Weapon Energy Saver equipped. So I wasn't planning on Dark Hold, which is why I didn't equip the part. But I probably should have equipped the part. Like, just in case I need to use Dark Hold again. It probably would have been useful, because that's a lot of enemies that you have to go through. So after that X1-esque stage, we have an X1 boss returning to fight us yet again. Oh boy, there's a lot to talk about here. So we get the Sigma symbol, and then we get, what is this guy called again? Rangda Bangda? Well, anyways, he's a little different from in X1. There are now 3 eyes, even though there are only 2 sockets for those eyes. The blue one tries to ram into you, and then when the walls close, you of course have that little sun nose to deal with. The nose and each of the eyes take 7 charge shots total to destroy, but do not fire that 7th shot on the sun nose just yet, because then you would have to fight all of the eyes with the walls permanently closed in on you like that, and that's impossible to deal with, especially with Unarmored X. So this green eye, it shoots projectiles at you, and each of those projectiles actually counts as an individual enemy, as far as the rankings are concerned. I'll talk about rankings a little bit later. So this red eye, how do you dodge the red eye's attack? I have no idea how to do that, but we're almost at the end of the fight already, because I've just been pelting charge shot after charge shot. And yes, past half health, when the walls close in, they can actually jut spikes out of the walls. It is entirely possible for both top halves of each wall to have spikes come out of them, and that is next to impossible to avoid dying to. The game can just decide, you lose a life, try the stage over again, and I had to try the, the boss over again many, many times because I kept getting caught by the wall spikes. That is so unfair. I mean, like, in this video, it's going by very quickly because I only show you the successful attempt, but trust me, I died many, many times. So I've actually been picking up a couple of parts. Like, I'm getting the last couple of parts in these next couple of stages. 2 of the parts that I got have to deal with the virus heads that you can run into. Like, one of them makes it harder to get infected, one of them lets you destroy virus heads, but there's no real point to it because there is only 1 stage left with viruses in it anyways, and I don't think they can even infect you in this level either. So this is the reddish pinkish virus stage, and you know, they chose to do something really special for the semi-final stage of the X series, because remember, X5 was intended to sort of be the conclusion to the X series, but they still rushed out X6 anyways. So they're going to do something really special in this stage. And there's also an Easter egg armor, that like they finally decided to put an Easter egg armor in another X game. And you can actually get an armor for Zero as well. They're both in the same location, but for X to get his Easter egg armor, you have to enter this stage with no armor whatsoever, which is really dangerous for new players, but I've been using unarmored X the entire time. And I took off Hyper Dash and Jumper for that jump precisely, because it's much easier for me to do that jump if I do not have those parts equipped. So yes, if you come here, you can get the ultimate armor. The ultimate armor for X is an Easter egg armor that was in X4, but you needed to use a button code to unlock it. Here you're able to get it for free, and it makes the final stage a lot more bearable, but I'm still going to use no armor. Like, I got the armor just to show where it was, and just in case I decided to use it after all in the final stage, but I did not, so, you know, I just got it for safety. It doesn't even equip automatically, which is also really annoying. You would have to game over and come in here with Zero to get his black armor, which is his Easter egg armor. And speaking of Zero, they actually do an X versus Zero fight. And, like, this makes sense if Zero became a Maverick because he failed to destroy the colony and got infected with a virus. And if that happens, he's actually stronger in this fight. But if you succeeded in destroying the colony, then this fight makes no sense. They basically, like, it's like the entire cutscene is, you go back to the base. No, you go back to the base. Also, there's a Wily symbol in the background. That fight kind of went by really quickly because I've got Quick Charge. I don't have Quick Charge. I have Ultimate Buster and Buster Plus equipped, and that lets you really pile on a lot of damage. So that fight was not nearly as epic as it was intended to be. You did not get to hear the amazing music. You did not get to consider the implications of a Wily symbol being in the background there. Yeah. People know by this point that Zero was originally built by Dr. Wily. Woo, spoilers, I guess. It's not even like they come out and say it or acknowledge it in any way. I mean, it's kind of poetic that these two characters are friends for most of the games, and they never realized that they were originally built by mortal enemies. Like, unless Zero gets infected with a virus, I guess. But still, like, I don't know, I think they could have provided a little more closure by actually acknowledging who built these two and why, because the characters never seem to ever figure it out. So yes, this is the final stage of the game, and it has a very disco vibe to it, which is really weird. It kind of doesn't mesh well with the previous stages, which were like apocalyptic and stuff, and now we're hitting the dance floor. Look at that background, it's like totally a disco ring or something. And the music just goes along with it perfectly. Like, music in the X series, no matter which X game you're playing, it could be X6, it could be X7, but the music in the X games is always, always good, and this stage theme is just, like, it really stands out on the entire OST. So we had some platforming sections, and now we have boss rematches, because why not? But you might have noticed that there is still, like, 20 plus minutes left in the video. You want to know why that is? Well, I'll tell you why that is. Because the boss rematches give all of the bosses life bars of that length. Yes! They need like 30 or 40 charge shots. I don't think the mod even reduced the amount of life that they have. But, you know, we're gonna be here a while, I guess. I guess it's worth noting that because of the long health bars, it's actually possible for bosses to show off their desperation moves many more times than they normally would. So I suppose that's worth watching this entire thing for, I guess. But I guess if you want to skip these rematches and go straight to the final boss, you know, I've got nothing against that. I'm just going to be using the Busters still, because their weaknesses, again, this is pretty common for the X series at this point. Weaknesses tend to add a lot more invincibility frames to the boss than just using the Buster would, so the Buster is more time efficient, even though it's probably a lot safer because there's a lot of hit stun that comes with using boss weaknesses. So, Yeah, I'm still using the Buster. The Ultimate Armor has this thing called the Nova Strike, which does a lot of damage and comes out very quickly. So using that would make this go by a lot faster, and I'm certain that 99% of the players who are trying to get X's endings, they just prefer the Ultimate Armor for this section, but, you know, I'm here, I've got no armor, I wanted to maintain Unarmored X, so, while 7 more boss battles against these uninteresting enemies are going on, I'm going to talk a little bit about the ranking system because I kind of glossed over it. Mega Man X5 is the first game in the series to introduce a ranking system, and it's honestly rather strict for how difficult the game can be, especially on Extreme Mode. Basically, the game wants you to play quickly, and it wants you to play smoothly, skillfully, don't take too much damage, don't destroy too many enemies. They actually want you to destroy as few enemies as possible, which is very odd. But anyways, they want you to complete stages quickly, without getting hit too much, obviously without dying, and they don't want you to touch any of the virus heads either, so that power-up part that lets you destroy the virus heads, it might actually be useful. So, if you score high enough in the game's rankings, you'll go up a rank, but if you score too low, you will go down a rank. However, in the Improvement Project mod, you never go down a rank. They modified the rankings so that you never drop a rank. Now, as your rank gets higher and higher, you have to consistently do better and better, not only to go to the next rank, but also to avoid losing a rank, because doing too poorly can cause you to drop a rank. The rankings only really affect the boss levels in X5. As stated, boss level is based on a combination of your current rank and the amount of hours left on the in-game timer. Unless you are on easy mode, in which case the bosses are always at level 1 and you cannot get any of the power-up parts. How nice. And of course in these boss rematches and the final boss are always at level 96, so good luck with that. Rankings just felt kind of strict in X5. They're really demanding, especially since without armors or upgrades, X5 is actually pretty difficult. Not to mention that they require you to destroy as few enemies as possible, but count things like Dark Dizzy's bats as additional enemies, even though they were spawned in the middle of a boss fight, and you might end up having to destroy a lot of them or be forced to take a hit. It's not really that great in my opinion, but there are routes for getting the maximum rank if you choose to go that route. It's really just for show at the end of the day. And really, X5 just has a lot of new ideas and systems that don't really justify their point. Rankings, well, I don't recall any casual players ever getting a high rank just through playing normally. Like, they really have to squeeze out every little bit of skill they've got in order to get a high rank, and it's not even worth anything. The power-up parts, getting those is annoying as well, because in order to get the maximum 8 parts per playthrough, you have to lose a bunch of hours on the timer. The virus heads, they don't really threaten you with infection. They're mostly rank killers, if anything else. And the in-game timer, there's 16 hours on the clock, you lose 1 hour per stage played. Getting a game over doesn't cost you an hour off the timer, and there are only 8 stages and 2 dynamo fights, and you get 1 hour back if the Enigma fails. And speaking of the Enigma and the Space Shuttle, having these be RNG, like, RNG determines the ending you get, I really wasn't feeling it, which is why for a time I actually liked X6 better than X5, if you can believe it. X6 just didn't have any of the flowcharty stuff and all this unnecessary annoyances. It just stuck to the regular gameplay of the X series and did that as poorly as it possibly could. Yeah, I'm more than certain you guys are wondering if X6 on Extreme Mode with no armor is on the table after X5. Well, I am checking out X6 to see if I can actually play it on Extreme Mode, and there is a quality of life patch for X6 that does a couple of things that make everything less frustrating while keeping the level design as close to the original as possible. They have to modify the level design in some places because there were some parts of X6 that were just completely awful, like in the second to last stage of the game, for example. There's an impossible jump that only certain armors are allowed to make. Anyways, I kind of have to check out Extreme Mode first for X6 because I haven't actually played the game on Extreme Mode, and so far it's been very, very frustrating and very difficult because, you know, X6 deserves its reputation for frustrating level design because, oh my goodness, on Extreme Mode, like, the game X6 is actually very tolerable on normal mode, but when you take it to Extreme Mode, then things get really, really difficult, and I am actually considering playing through the game I can't do it with Unarmored X, that's the thing. I really don't feel I can do it without all of those charged special weapons that make things a little bit easier. So I am thinking that I'm going to play Extreme Mode, Falcon Armor X only. That will at least give me some wiggle room here and there. I can charge the special weapons, I'll have reduced damage, I'll have at least a couple of things, even though the patch actually makes Unarmored X a little bit stronger. They buffed the charge shot, they gave him an air dash so that he has something over Falcon Armor X, but I'm probably still going to choose Falcon Armor X for the entire game. Zero's pretty overpowered, so I don't really know if I'll unlock him in X6, but we'll see. But if all goes well, then X6 on Extreme Mode with the Quality of Life patch might be on the table, you never know. Though to be honest, YouTube hasn't exactly been top priority for me. I've got a ROM hacking project going, and a game development project going, and a bunch of other stuff that I would like to get to at some point, so yeah, I know my YouTube videos don't exactly come out as fast as some others would, but you know, if you've been sticking around, I really gotta thank you for viewing my channel and commenting on the videos, because, well, I'll be perfectly honest, the views have been very low lately, and I don't really know if that has to do with the games I'm choosing to play, or if it's just because my videos aren't that interesting, and it's probably the latter, to be perfectly honest. Regardless, I do have future video ideas that I would like to pursue, so this X5 playthrough was partly to exercise my vocal cords and kind of get into the swing of things again. I don't exactly do YouTube nearly as often as some other YouTubers would, and that's partly because I just have a lot of interests in life. I have a lot of development projects I want to take on, I have a lot of art that I want to draw. I guess I could say I'm a man of many talents, but I'm not even that. Like, I do a lot of things, but I don't do a lot of things exceedingly well, I guess you could say. At any rate, I guess I'll try and put out as much interesting content as I can, and I appreciate the viewership regardless of what happens. So anyways, getting back to X5, where exactly are we in the boss rematches anyways? I haven't been paying attention. Oh, it looks like we just finished off Grizzly Slash. Hey, interesting bit of info about this boss. The weapon you get from him for Zero is so stupidly overpowered, it changes his aerial slash into this crescent slash that does a ton of damage to every boss. However, Grizzly Slash is immune to it, so when you rematch him as Zero, you kind of have to use ground combos exclusively. You really can't air slash him, which is kind of annoying because you've probably been used to spamming that air slash the entire game. It really just destroys everything in its path, and it's the reason I didn't want to use Zero for this playthrough. Zero's also pretty overpowered in X6, so I would prefer not to have to resort to him. There's even a bug that can make him invincible, although the Quality of Life patch that I have, it probably fixes it. Like, there are some bug fixes in these Quality of Life patches. By the way, there's a demonstration of the Thorn Whip grabbing and draining your health. I thought it would be interesting to get caught by that, and I totally did not get caught by it by accident. So anyways, oh yeah, I got caught twice. That was probably by accident. So, yeah, Axel the Red really likes to just sit there and take a bunch of charge shots like that. You know, now that I think about it, I might be making the X5 bosses look really weak and pathetic, but X6's bosses, barring one exception, are actually even worse. You can just melt their life bars very quickly. It's mostly due to their painfully short health bars, and they don't really gain any interesting attacks unless you're on Extreme Mode, where they can actually get unique desperation moves exclusive to those modes. And there is also a sort of system in place where the more you play the game, the stronger the bosses get. It's kind of like X5 with a timer, except with a different mechanic entirely. Yeah, I've been talking about X6 so much that I should probably just resign myself to getting around to that eventually, but it's going to be really, really tough, so I'll probably have to practice, and, you know, hope that it makes for an interesting video series when we get around to it. I mean, I can't really top playthroughs that already exist on YouTube. Someone has played X6 on Extreme Mode with no armors or upgrades, no damage, and you know, they beat the game that way. It's really, really fun to watch, and really, really cool to see executed like that. But I am nowhere near that level of skill, or that level of patience, because I would have to replay a lot of X6 over and over again. The thought is honestly not that entertaining. Anyways, I'm just filling dead air. This should be the last rematch. The good news is, and I found this out while recording this, if you get a game over at any point during the rematches, all of the bosses that you had already destroyed, they stay destroyed. You don't have to start from scratch like in X4. And I would hope that's the case for X6 as well, but honestly, the quality of life patch, it kind of makes game overs matter, let's say. I don't know if that'll be a huge problem, but we'll see. So thank goodness, all of the rematches are done, and that's hopefully the last time I ever have to do this in X5. I do not see myself playing this game again, just for that excessively long rematch stage. Like, honestly, boss rematches, they're really wearing out their welcome this late into the franchise. Oh, and I also decided to at least try and show off all of the weapons. Here's the Goo Shaver. And it's kind of okay for this section. It lets you destroy the enemies below you. And I tried to use the Wing Spiral, which is what that weapon is called. And there's the Spike Ball. You can see how useful that is. And of course, Dark Hold, we've already seen this, and I am completely failing to make that tiny little jump. Dark Hold just isn't really that interesting in my opinion, because a lot of areas throughout the game, they have the enemies placed in such a way that freezing them would make it harder to avoid them. And of course, here are the disappearing blocks. The final stage of X5 decided to conclude with the infamous disappearing bricks. And they're not really hard to get past. You just jump from one block to the next. It's kind of difficult to see that you can reach the final platform from the final block, because it's just barely off screen, so you kind of have to jump for it. Not really a good thing, but here we are in the final room of the game. It's really weird. It's got these two wireframe thingamajigs of X and Zero with those capsules. Is this where they were originally discovered? That can't be right. We're in cyberspace. Anyways, Sigma's first form. It kind of has a couple of attacks that resemble X1 Sigma. You'll see that when he dashes towards me, the pattern is, well, he's going to stop there and fire those orbs, but here's the pattern I'm talking about. Very similar to X1 Sigma, avoided in very much the same fashion. The tricky part of this fight is that you have to take both it and the second form on one life, so you don't want to lose too much health on this first phase. Although with all those energy capsules that the re-fights gave you, they should have filled up your sub-tanks by now, and there was plenty of other recovery items that could have conceivably filled up your life bar and your E-tanks. So this attack is probably the hardest part. You just have to know to jump, like, just straight up in order to get in between the two waves at the end there. So Sigma's first form was not that difficult, but Sigma's second form is something else. I've heard this form referred to as Gamma Sigma because it resembles the Gamma fight from Mega Man 3. The giant robot head in the background and his fists coming at you is kind of similar. And the dialogue here implies that Dr. Wily himself built this battle body for Sigma. I have no idea how Dr. Wily is still alive. Maybe he digitized his brain. There's also theories that Izok from Mega Man X6 is also Dr. Wily, and that Surges from X2 is also Dr. Wily. It's very confusing, and they should really just stop teasing us like that. Just tell us if Dr. Wily is alive, because we kind of want that continuity with the older titles, because nobody really knows how the cast from the classic series just up and disappeared in time for the X series to start. Like, Dr. Light would have passed away by now, but Dr. Wily is hinted to still be around, so would he have passed away as well? Anyways, this is the only time I ever had to use a sub-tank in X5, so go me, I guess. This fight is just really long, and you can actually avoid the right fist by clinging up into the corner, and you can also take shots at the red gem, which is his weak point. This attack right here, I don't know how to dodge it. I just take the hit and use the invincibility frames to get out of there, and then I just attack the red gem as much as possible before I inevitably have to take another hit. It really just looks like unavoidable damage. It's probably like something you have to get pixel perfect. And he was able to briefly show off the purple cubes, but he was finished off before he could really show off what those things do. They're his most damaging attack, and very difficult to avoid as well. Well, at any rate, if the X series was going to end, I'm glad they intended it to end with a fight that epic. Also, apparently Zero is here. I don't really know how he got here. They're both supposed to be in this scene regardless of which one you picked, but since you can only choose one character at a time and they don't even appear in the fight, it's really weird. But yes, Zero is finally dead until X6 in the Zero series and all of that other good stuff. So yes, apparently Sigma's head was still alive, it fires a laser. Remember people, Zero comes back from that state. Then again, so does X. But at least X had the ghost of Dr. Light or whatever this scene is supposed to be. Oh yeah, I also forgot to mention that both X5 and X6 have patches out nowadays that retranslate the entire game so that the grammar is much better and the font looks way, way nicer. It's really cool. I have no idea why Capcom is so bad at localization. It seems to be a recurring problem for them in just about everything they make. Like, especially in X6. X6 is infamous for how little effort went into it. So anyways, I really don't know how X recovers from losing his entire lower body and having a hole in his chest like that, but I suppose having both of the heroes die for good would be very, very depressing. Naturally, this ending is a little bit different if you fail to destroy the colony, because X also has his memories of Zero wiped away completely. Well, anyways, that's the ending of X5, and revisiting it with the Improvement Project mod was actually a lot of fun. The Improvement Project mod did a lot to make the gameplay less frustrating. X5 is infamous for taking up a bunch of your time and not really being that great, but you know, I think it was a little better than I thought it was before replaying this. Still probably a better game than X6, considering that X6 becomes near impossible on extreme mode. But to be perfectly honest, you know, there are people who say that the second half of the Legacy Collection for this series contains basically the bad half of Mega Man X, because it's got X5, X6, X7, and X8. Now, X5 and X8 are pretty average games in my opinion, but I definitely believe that X5 is where the series quality really started to get lower and lower and lower as time went on, because next we have X6, and then after that is X7. Basically, the best part of the second half of the X series is the game Command Mission for the PS2, which I really, really liked as a kid, and I still kind of like it today. But then again, that was a spin-off RPG, like, and you chose Mega Man X for your spin-off RPG. That's a really weird decision to make, but regardless, you know, I would definitely say that the first half of the X series was way more fun to revisit than the second half. And I haven't even gotten to X7 yet. Something just happened to Capcom around this time. Like, in between all of the mediocre X games, they were also making... what were they making? Like, within the Mega Man series at least, they were also making Battle Network 4 around that time as well. So, you know, at least that sold a bunch, and turned everyone off to Battle Network forever. You know, I get that companies sometimes don't make the best decisions when it comes to how they sell or make their video games, but when you think about everything that happened to the X series, you gotta wonder what happened to everything that they surely must have learned from doing the classic series in the first half of the X games up to this point. Well, regardless of that, I'm sure there will still be games to play in the future anyways. We recently got Mega Man 11, which as far as I know has done decently, but you know, we don't exactly have any news on Mega Man 12, or if they're going to bring back Legends 3. All of these are things that I'm sure are just wishful thinking at the end of the day. I mean, it's pretty obvious why Mega Man 11 even exists in the first place. If you were paying attention to the news at any point during that game's development, then you should have a rough idea of why they decided to create that game in the first place. If it means that the franchise isn't dead, then all the better. Anyways, this has been a playthrough of Mega Man X5. I'm Efren225. And I hope you enjoyed the playthrough, and maybe look forward to an extreme mode playthrough of Mega Man X6. I will have to do some very rigorous practicing in order to make that happen, but I am hoping that I can make it happen very shortly. Of course, I've still got all of the other things that I'm working on that are things that you can look forward to seeing as well when they come out. So I hope everyone has a very good December and a happy holiday and a happy new year, and I will see you for whatever I decide to try out next. I've certainly got no shortage of ideas, considering there are a ton of games that I would like to play on this channel, but not necessarily in just the same old talk over the gameplay footage format as I've been doing for a while now. I would love to try out something that's a little more refreshing. So, whatever happens next, I'll see you guys later, and have a good December and a new year. Thanks, everybody. By the way, does anyone else think this credit sequence moves way too slowly? I have had to think up a bunch of different things to talk about just to fill the dead air until my final ranking and clear time appears. Wow. Anyways, that clear time is completely inaccurate. It doesn't track real time. It's just in-game time, which means even after all of the deaths that I had to edit out, it was just over an hour of playtime, so maybe that's a good thing, but it's nowhere near speedrun levels. Anyways, that's really the end of it now. See you later, everybody. Enjoy this music while it lasts until the video cuts.